to take a person that's been here for 15 or 20 years and throw them and the family out, it's so tough, Mr. Trump. I mean, I have it all the time. It's a very, very hard thing.
Trump's self-described softening on what to do about the millions of people who have entered the country illegally stands in sharp contrast to what he said about his opponents in the primary campaign.
The weakest person on the stage by far on illegal immigration is Jeb Bush. He is so weak on illegal immigration, it's laughable, and everybody knows it.
The pivot on immigration provoked howls from some of those opponents. An ally of Ted Cruz told Fox News today Trump's shifting on this issue is no different than if Ted Cruz were to come out in support of Obamacare. It's a complete reversal on the promise he made to the primary voters who elected him. And this from Jeb Bush.
All the things that Donald Trump railed against, he seems to be morphing into. It's kind of disturbing.
Even Trump's most staunch supporters seem alarmed by the change, and it has failed to silence his detractors. A group of undocumented immigrants protested at Trump Tower today. A shouting match erupted as Trump supporter Pastor Mark Burns arrived for a roundtable on minority outreach.
Can you tell me why you support me? Do you support me and my family being deported from this country?
I would support
you want my mother and my little sister to be separated?
Just because you are loud,
so do you want my mother?
Just because you are talking louder than me don't make you right.
Donald Trump and immigration, his former opponents speaking out on his change of tone.
Well, I can only say that whatever his views are this morning, they might change this afternoon, and they were different than they were last night, and they'll be different tomorrow. Sounds like a typical politician, by the way, where you get in front of one crowd and say one thing and then say something else to another crowd that may want to hear a different view. All the things that Donald Trump railed against, he seems to be morphing into. It's kind of disturbing.
Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who essentially lost primarily on the issue of immigration in the primary against Donald Trump, talking today for the first time about this change in tone and words being used by Donald Trump. We're back with the panel. Lisa, I mean, this is just listening to what Trump said to Sean Hannity last night. I mean, it is completely different than what he said on the primary campaign trail. And listen to Jeb Bush there. He was the recipient of the attacks.
Well, from a rhetorical standpoint, yes. I mean, I don't think we've seen any policy difference, or at least he hasn't laid out that big policy speech that people were expecting, indicating a change. But I think ambiguity is sort of his friend and an enemy of this election cycle, in the sense that he was somewhat, there's a lot of ambiguity regarding what that deportation, that mass deportation would look like. And so that sort of was his friend because he didn't really have to get nailed down on the specifics. But now it's sort of his enemy. And the situation he's presented with right now is a lose-lose in a sense. With if he goes with his original statements and when he was talking about this mass deportations, he's going to get hit from the left. He's going to get hit from the mainstream media as inhumane for wanting to follow the laws in the books. However, if he changes his opinion and allows for some sort of legalization or amnesty, then he's not going to alienate some of his core constituency and get hit with that as well. So I think he's sort of presented with a lose-lose scenario at this current moment.
Sure, but I mean, Jeb Bush is a guy who got attacked by Donald Trump for saying it was an act of love for not to split up families. And Trump hammered him on the debate stage. I remember it. I was there.
Jeb is absolutely right. This is the position of the Gang of Eight. The position that we've now heard adopted by Trump is the position of Rubio and Jeb. You could even say Chuck Schumer. And to say this is ambiguity, I think is not quite right. There's nothing ambiguous about wanting to have a deportation force to expel 11 million people. He was very clear about that again and again. He didn't have specifics because he never had specifics for anything. But that was his position. His position is not that today. You watch him on Hannity, he's saying, the people have been here 20 years. You don't want to kick them out. They've got children. They have roots. This is exactly the argument that the softliners on immigration have been taking, and that Trump had denounced and beyond denouncing, ridiculed. Remember, he once said, if I went out on Fifth Avenue and I shot somebody, I wouldn't lose any supporters. Well, now it's if I went out and completely reversed position on immigration, which was the central issue in my campaign, I wouldn't lose anybody. Well, let's see whether that's true.
But does he want to do this, Steve? Is this part of this grand plan in the campaign, considering that he's not going to lose those people because they've already hardened against Hillary Clinton and they're motivated to vote for him?
I think he could lose some of those people. I was talking to a senior Republican in Iowa who was very supportive of Donald Trump, but is passionate about this issue, about immigration in particular, who said, look, this is why people came to him initially. I mean, this is the big argument for him. I mean, part of it was strength, part of it was the way that he talked. But people supported him because he was strong on immigration. He was stronger than Ted Cruz. He fought Marco Rubio. He went after Jeb Bush again and again and again. That's what Donald Trump did, and it caused some of his support. I don't think these people are suddenly going to turn and vote for Hillary Clinton, but if it dampens their enthusiasm, you look at the support that he's got for Republicans already, it's between 75 and 80%, whereas Hillary Clinton's getting 90% of the Democrats. And just to the earlier point, rhetoric in a presidential campaign is policy. I mean, we don't need to wait for a presidential speech. I mean, this is what he's doing every time he speaks, is he's making new policy, and this is a full flip-flop. I mean, not just on the deportation force, but as you suggest, what he outlined last night sounds very similar to the position that Jeb Bush ran on in the primaries that Trump went after him on, and the Gang of Eight.
Quickly, when you look at these polls, and there is a trend here, Heidi, is this race starting to harden before Labor Day? I mean, are we starting to get to the point where we kind of know the framework of this race?
I think it is, just out of the fact that this is the natural ebb and flow of a campaign, that they start to harden, the numbers start to harden after the conventions. I think that Donald Trump, being the underdog, however, has both a big challenge but also an opportunity in terms of the debates, and I think that's what we'll have to keep our eyes on, is, you know, what kind of Donald Trump shows up to this debate.
Let's get straight to our top story. Donald Trump's immigration plan. The Republican nominee announcing he'll deliver a major speech on illegal immigration set for Wednesday in Arizona. With an increasing number of questions about his stance on deportation, his campaign is delivering an outline for what may be ahead.
First, there is still no amnesty. Secondly, he's building that wall. That has been the centerpiece of his candidacy and his immigration vision from the beginning, and it has not changed 1 inch. Third, we have to end these sanctuary cities. He has said that if you want to be here legally, you have to apply to be here legally. We all learned in kindergarten to stand in line and wait our turn. And he is not talking about a deportation force, but he is talking about being fair and humane, but also being fair to the American workers who are competing for jobs, being fair to all of us who want secure borders and want the law enforced.
Joining us now from Dallas with reaction, Katrina Pearson, national spokesperson for the Trump campaign. Katrina, let's start with that immigration plan. I hear that. I hear no amnesty. I hear build the wall. Let's zone in on that deportation. No deportation force, but will he suggest the 11 or 12 million leave and come back?
Absolutely. And that part of the policy has not changed, just not using those same words. Those words actually came from a journalist that sort of carried into Mr. Trump's policies. He absolutely wants illegal aliens to leave the country and get in line, as you heard Kellyanne Conway just state. We have to secure the border. This is not just about immigration. This is about human trafficking. This is about drug trafficking. These are things that affect American citizens on a daily basis. And we have to enforce current laws on the book. And we have ICE, Eric. That is the current deportation force that we have in the United States. And we have to give them the ability to do their job efficiently and effectively. Ending sanctuary cities is going to be key, and having a functional E-Verify system to make sure that Americans are getting the jobs in this country. By the time we complete those 4 stages of Mr. Trump's plan, there's not going to be 11 million people in this country illegally. And once we get to that point, Mr. Trump is going to lay out on Wednesday what he wants to do with those 11 million or less who are going to be here by that point.
Yeah, Katrina, what's interesting to me is President Obama has prided himself on deportations for the last 8 years. In fact, he calls himself the president who's deported more illegals than any other president. I think the number is almost 3 million deportations under President Obama. Yet, the left will point the finger at Donald Trump, saying that's cruel.
Well, and that's because it's a Republican saying those things. And the one thing that you won't see under a President Trump that we currently see under President Obama and the Obama-Clinton administration is that he will not be releasing criminal aliens back into the population. That would be an automatic deportation. Mr. Trump wants to prioritize this process. And of course, we can't get all of this done in the first day of office. This is going to be a process, and Mr. Trump wants to outline his priorities. Because at the end of the day in November, you have 2 choices. You have a candidate that wants to crack down on border security, get criminal illegal aliens out of the country, and focus on putting American families first, Or you can have Hillary Clinton, someone that in the first 100 days of her office wants to give amnesty, someone that's not even concerned with the borders in this country.
Katrina, last question on the immigration topic. Something that's an issue that's near and dear to this show right here, sanctuary cities. Now, will Mr. Trump recommend no sanctuary cities in the United States?
Oh, absolutely. We absolutely have to get rid of sanctuary cities. You know, I'm here in Texas, Eric, and this is something that we've been talking about for a very long time. It hurts American families, and Mr. Trump wants to make America safe again as well as great again, and that is going to be one of the most critical steps, is to end those sanctuary cities.
Okay, let's turn the topic to the Chicago tweets. Over the weekend, Dwayne Wade's cousin, Nikia Aldridge, was murdered. She was shot bringing her child after signing up for school. Mr. Trump tweeted, and he's getting a little bit of heat for the tweet, that the African, here's his tweet right here. Dwayne Wade's cousin was just shot and killed walking her baby in Chicago, but what I have been saying all along, African Americans will vote Trump. Now, the issue being that he tweeted that first and then tweeted condolences afterwards. So what is this all about? Is this a timing issue, or is this politics?
Well, it's a timing issue. And look, this is not the first time Mr. Trump has pointed out senseless violence in a community like Chicago. This has been an ongoing discussion that he's had for a very long time. And even though we have a lot of people in the media and the talking heads out there saying that Mr. Trump hasn't made an attempt to go into these communities, he went to that community in March during the primary. Mr. Trump is very concerned with communities like Chicago and Baltimore and Maryland, simply because they have no voice. And Mr. Trump is the first Republican candidate in a very long time to ask for a chance to be that voice for them, and that's what this was about.
Okay, so some of the pushback has been that Mr. Trump will make this outreach to the African American community, the minority communities, Hispanic communities, but he'll do it in front of a white audience. Will that change going forward?
Well, that will absolutely change. And, you know, again, I'll push back on that because Mr. Trump made an attempt to go to Chicago. He spoke at the Black Chamber of Commerce in South Carolina. He's met with black pastors organizations. A black church just endorsed him last month. So this is not brand new to Mr. Trump. It's just brand new to the media.
Okay, and the last topic I want to get to is Huma Abedin announced today that she was leaving her husband, Anthony Weiner. Now, we know the history of Anthony Weiner. He's had trouble. He's been sexting. He's been caught sexting and whatnot. Now, Huma says they're breaking up, but Mr. Trump issued a statement on this. What is he saying? What's his stance on Huma Abedin?
Oh, well, he just wished her well, mainly, but his concern was asking the question, you know, is this the type of judgment Hillary Clinton would have to allow someone with this type of access, someone like Anthony Weiner in his statement? He was simply just asking the question, simply because we do know that Huma Abedin was one of the individuals that had a dual role at the State Department as well as the Clinton Foundation that was handling some of this sensitive information, and he was very concerned about who else's hands that might have ended up in. So
is he concerned, was he concerned, and is he still concerned that going forward, Huma Abedin having access to the security briefings that he as well is seeing, I guess, starting now?
Well, that's why he included the question mark. These are things that we don't know. We also know that thousands more emails have been surfaced, and we're going to find out a little bit more. But Hillary Clinton has been in hiding 266 days without a press conference, and she won't answer any of these questions. So these are just things we don't know, which is exactly why Mr. Trump included that question mark.
All right, Katrina, thank you very much.
What about the law-abiding majority? That's
now
the
you have
question.
people that came in illegally, and they're called illegal immigrants, and they're here illegally. They're going to have to go, and they're going to have to come back in legally. And otherwise, we don't have a country. And if we don't do that, we don't have a country. They're going to have to go, and they're going to have to come in legally. They're going to have to come in through a system.
So you're saying there is, and you have been sort of indicating that there will be some flexibility, that you originally you had said they're all out and there was a big brouhaha.
We have to make a whole new set of standards. And when people come in, they have to come in.
So you're going to split up families?
Chuck,
You're going to deport children?
Chuck, no. We're going to keep the families together. We have to keep the families together.
But you're going to keep them together out?
But they have to go.
Well, you're saying that if somebody can prove that they've been here, proven to be a citizen, but well, here's the big question though.
Go ahead.
No citizenship.
No citizenship. No citizenship.
Everyone agree with that?
I mean, go a step further. They'll pay back taxes. They have to pay taxes. There's no amnesty as such. There's no amnesty.
Right.
But we work with them. Now, okay.
We have a country of laws. They're going to go out, and they'll come back if they deserve to come back.
People will face ramifications if they don't leave.
People will leave.
If they harbor
People will
them.
leave. They're here
How are you
illegally.
going to pay for this?
It's very
Are they going to be ripped out of their homes?
Can I tell
How?
you? They're going back where they came. If they came from a certain country, they're going to be brought back to that country. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now, they can come back, but they have to come back legally.
But when I look at the rooms, and I have this all over, now, everybody agrees we get the bad ones out. But when I go through and I meet thousands and thousands of people on this subject, and I've had very strong people come up to me, really great, great people come up to me, and they've said, Mr. Trump, I love you. But to take a person that's been here for 15 or 20 years and throw them and the family out, it's so tough, Mr. Trump. I mean, I have it all the time.
And what you're proposing is not mean-spirited.
No, I don't think it's mean-spirited. Mine is not mean-spirited. Mine is, it's business. We have a country. You don't have a country. If people are allowed to walk in, cross the border, and stay here for as long as they want, you don't have a country.
It's a very, very hard thing.
If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration, Chris. You wouldn't even be talking about it.